All right, everybody. Kenny Smith with Total Force Holdings. This week, we're going to be discussing what was probably one of the most commonly sold weapons during the Summers of Love and the COVID pandemic, that when everybody started buying guns and it made it difficult for everybody to get arms and ammunition. And that's going to be the 12-gauge shotgun. Now, there's a lot of great shotguns out there. There's some mediocre shotguns like this one, and then there's some really crappy shotgun. So, which one do you need? Well, I'd suggest avoiding the really crappy shotgun. And for most purposes, even the mediocre shotguns. Like this one, I intentionally went lower end for a reason. We'll get to that later. So the shotgun, a bunch of them are sold because people are told that they're extremely versatile. And in a general purpose sense, they are, but in a combative role, they're really not. So nonetheless, it's one of those things that people buy them for because they think you can use all these different types of ammunition, when for self-defense purposes, there's really not that many choices, at least that are valid. They're told they're simple. They're like a revolver. They are simple until they have a problem, especially a pump gun like this one. Do you want a semi-auto? Do you want box magazine fed? Do you want tube fed? Do you want a pump gun? Do you want a break action gun? There's a bunch of different. You want a lever action gun? There's all different kinds of shotguns out there. All right, and I'd say probably one of the most dominantly sold ones is something a lot like this, which is a pump action, tube magazine fed, right, 12-gauge shotgun. Now, I don't know how well y'all could see in there, but, okay, see my finger clearly going in the barrel, and bright orange magazine follower, again, nothing in the chamber. I do have my side saddle loaded, but c'est la vie. So, something like this is commonly purchased. So what does this need to be a valid setup? Doesn't matter whether you have a pump gun or a semi-auto. A 12-gauge shotgun needs three things to be a valid setup. First and foremost, a lot of people would say this. No, I'm going to say this, the sling. Shotguns typically are not lightweight. So what that means is if you're hunkered in, you're one-handed, maybe you're on the phone with the law, being able to cinch into that sling and let that sling support some of the weight will help you quite a bit, all right? I understand, get stronger, get bigger. I'm a pretty strong guy, but you're only going to hold the weight of this thing up for so long before things start to get difficult, all right? So the good sling, yeah, self-explanatory, right? And you may need to maneuver a child or something like that. All right, you may get to a position where you want the weapon readily accessible but don't necessarily want it up here. A good sling goes there, right? It's pretty simple. The sling is to a long gun what a holster is to a handgun. Next, white light, okay? You can go with a pistol mounted light on a magazine and barrel clamp like this one here. All right, this is from CDM Gear. It's an old school Streamlight TLR1. Right, you can go with something like that. You can go with one of the integrated 4-ends, right? There's all kinds of lights out there you can mount on your shotgun. And then you have extra ammunition, okay? Shotguns, one of their, well, really this comes down to two of their big detriments are they don't hold much ammunition in the gun. All right, now I don't know about you guys, but if I get woke up at dark 30, I'm not putting on a rig, right? So if you break into my house at dark 30, you're going to get met by a very large, angry man in a pair of silkies, okay? So having said that, I'm not putting on a rig. With this gun right here, I've got 5 in the tube and 1 up the pipe, all right? I can put 6 in the tube, but it was never meant for that. It's just kind of, there's some freaking lugs in here that I really don't know what they're for. I got in there with a grinding wheel and grinded them out. You can fit 6 in there in a pinch, but it's not something you want to leave it loaded with. All right. So now if I was reloading it, yeah, I'd put 1 in the pipe and 6 in the tube all day long. But nonetheless, for general purpose, leaving it loaded, it'd be 5 in the tube, 1 in the chamber. So I've got 6, maybe 7 rounds in this gun. All right. For these Riot Link guns, you'll be hard pressed to get more than 8+1. Out of the Mossberg 590s and 500s with the 8-shot tube, obviously, and some of the Benellis and stuff that you can ghost load. You're looking at 8-9 rounds tops. It's not a lot. Granted, 12 gauge is pretty conclusive when it hits a bad guy. When this thing hits a human being, it's, let's just say it's pretty authoritative about telling them to fuck off, okay? So, you do have that going for you. But, you don't have much ammunition in the weapon. So, if it doesn't do the job, you're going to end up having to reload with this thing awful quick. I mean, even with a pump gun, you're going to end up having to reload very, very quick. With a semi-auto, even more so. So, extra ammunition on the gun is a good thing. Because with a shotgun, if you are not shooting this shotgun, you need to be reloading this shotgun because the reload takes time. All right. So even off my side saddle, right, I've got one round and it's not going in the chamber. Going in like so. Round goes in, send there. And then I'm going to start forcing rounds into the tube. All right. As you can see, I still have 5 rounds there. Chamber is empty. Bright orange follower in the magazine tube. So you need to be reloading this thing, all right? Because if the people you're dealing with have friends, think one of our recent Summers of Love, there's several of them. You need this thing topped off. As Jeff Cooper said, it's just in bad form to go to a fight with a half-loaded pistol. So not one of those things that you want to be doing. You want to keep this thing topped up, all right? Runs out of ammunition fast. And then you run into another problem with a shotgun that, as you can see, that is a quite large round of ammunition there. Okay, it's about the size of my thumb, meaning I can only carry so many, all right, before I run out of space to do so. So capacity is always going to be a detriment to the shotgun. And that ammunition is big, so this is not something you'd want to go on a long walk as like a fighting weapon, all right. From a combative context, right, you could use these in a point man roll. They were used quite commonly in Vietnam for that, to flush stuff out of the jungle, things of that nature. And they work well for breaching, but other than that, I mean, you're limited on range, you're very limited on capacity with a long reload time, and the amount of ammunition you can carry in your gear is limited. So probably not the best choice for a general purpose fighting gun, but where they do excel is as a strong point defense weapon. Okay, you put this in the master bedroom, right? You hear the bump in the night, you maneuver your kids to the master bedroom, and you hold that door. And anything not in a uniform of a local first responder that breaches that door, you give it hell, and then you reload. All right. So pretty simple in that context. We need to talk about ammunition. Right, for the purposes of fighting, you have 2 choices: buckshot and slugs. All right, some people will say you can use birdshot. Well, I'm not the best bird hunter in the world, but I've done a little bit of it, okay? And it is not uncommon when you use small birdshot to hit birds and notice that there are pellets embedded in the feathers that didn't meet meat, okay? As such, if it won't penetrate through the feathers and skin of a dove, I don't have a warm fuzzy about using it against someone trying to murder me in mine. You might, your mileage may vary, that's your prerogative. I don't. All right. People will use the logic of, well, birdshot won't go through your interior walls and kill your kids. Yeah, it will. Because if it'll go through the sternum of an offender, which we know it will at close range, very close range, then yeah, that'll obviously penetrate 2 layers of interior drywall. So, nonetheless, it can work at very close range, but especially with the low base, cheap bird shot that I know a lot of people who buy into that myth like to keep on hand based on that. Good luck. All right. Now, some of your high base game loads, now you might be talking about something. I am well aware of incidents, specifically in Vietnam, where BB shot was used to essentially flush ambushes. All right, BB is just the size of a BB, 0.177 inch. It's not going to do tremendous damage, but there's a lot of them, and yeah, I'm aware. My great uncle fought in Vietnam, and those are incidents that he relayed. He was a big fan of the Stevens 67, and used a mix of BB and 4-buck for that. I don't know where he got the BB shot, because to my knowledge they weren't general issue, but he did, and I kind of trust him on that one. So, yeah, I mean, you can use the larger bird shot for different things, but for general purposes, you're really stuck with buck or slugs. And 12 gauge, your buck's going to come in a few different flavors. Double out buck is the standard. That's what's in and on this gun right now. Well, there's nothing in this gun right now, but that's what's on this gun side saddle at the moment. All right, that's what I took out of the magazine tube and chamber before I started filming. 9 pellet double out buck. All right, you can get 8 pellet double out buck. You can get 12 pellet double out buck. And that's sticking with a 2 3/4 inch shell. 3 inches. 3 inches good for hunting, but it's not so good for combative use. You reduce your already low capacity and you increase your already significant recoil. So I don't think the extra payload is worth that on a fighting gun. On a hunting gun, maybe, but on a fighting gun, no. Especially the reduction in capacity. So that's just one of those things, right? 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch shell, double out buck. You're looking at 8, 9, or 12 pellet. All right, this is 9 pellet, which is pretty much the standard because that's what I can find, or it's what I could find. I've got enough of this shit. I'm not really worried about looking for more of it anytime soon. I prefer 12 pellet and double out buck. It's a little bit stouter on the recoil, but it's, again, 33% more pellets. So that's just one of those things. 4 buck, this particular shotgun really like the old Federal Flight Control 34 pellet 4 buck load. Unfortunately, I can't find it anymore. All right. 4 buck. Again, I know it was popular in Vietnam for flushing ambushes in the jungles. Nothing wrong with 4 buck. I want to say it's 27 caliber pellet, and there's like 27 of them in there. See, 27 and 24. I think it's 24. Anyway, all right, it's a sizable pellet. It's not as big as double out buck, but it's a sizable pellet, and it's basically diameter and number of pellets wise the equivalent of dumping an AR mag every time you pull the trigger. So 4 buck has a lot going for it. 1 buck has like a cult following around here. At least in my area, people who use the 16 pellet, which each pellet's 30 caliber, people who use the 16 pellet 1 buck, they swear by it. I haven't tried any 1 buck in this shotgun. It's hard to find. I had a Mossberg 500 when I was younger that loved it, and I would get Winchester Super X 1 buck, and that's what it liked better than anything. No wrong with that. Every once in a while, you'll find a single out buck. I can count on one hand the number of boxes of that I've found in my life, so it's just not common. Couldn't tell you much about it. Then you've got triple aught buck, which is usually 8 pellet, a little bit bigger than double aught. I know people that like triple aught. I know people whose guns like triple aught, which brings me to the next thing you need to do with your shotgun. Patterning. What does that mean? I use this round of ammunition because it's what I can get. It's what I can get reliably. All right. Does my shotgun like this ammunition? No, it does not. But I can't find the ammunition it likes, so I have to make do with what I can find, right? What does patterning mean? Patterning means we go out to the range and it's like, okay, I want to find out what buckshot load shoots the best with this gun. What does my gun like the best? All right. Because shotguns are picky. If your shotgun does not like that load, you're not going to hit squat. All right, and you're going to play hell learning your dope, which got on previous engagements, right? For where that spread's going to go. All right, let's say you want a super tight pattern. All right, then you go to the local gun shop and you say, okay, I want to shoot 2 3/4 inch 12 gauge buck. All right, cool. And you're not particular about size. You buy every box of 12 gauge buckshot they have, not all of them together, but one of each type. And you go to the range and you set up paper and you write down what load it is. Federal bulk pack, I think it's high shock, right, or vital shock or something like that. Anyway, Federal 9 pellet bulk pack double out buck. Boom, 5 yards or 3 yards. Boom, 5 yards. Boom, 7 yards. Boom, 10 yards. Boom, 15 yards. Whatever range, I'm just throwing those out there. Whatever range you want to use buckshot in. Right, meaning, okay, Federal Flight Control 12 pellet buck. Boom, 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 right? So you do that with every load you got, and then you say, okay, which one gives me consistently the tightest pattern? That's the ammunition that I'm going to buy in bulk to feed this gun. All right? And it gets expensive. I get it. But you have to know where this gun is going to pattern. You've got to. One, you need to make sure that your ammunition fits what you wanted to do. Right? If you're looking for more of a quote-unquote riot gun setup where you want a bit more spread, then you need to know which one gives you the spread you want. And more importantly, you need to know where those pellets are going to go. We are responsible for every projectile we send downrange, whether that range be on a commercial range or out in public, okay? We are responsible for every projectile we launch. You need to know where every projectile in that shot load is going to go, all right? That's just the fact of the matter. If you don't like that, the shotgun's not for you, okay? That's just how it is, all right? So you got to pattern this gun, and you got to do the same thing with your slugs. When you go to a slug, right, now, if you get a riot type shotgun like this, where the only mechanism of sighting is that bead up front and a flat ledge there across the rear of the receiver, there's no chance to zero it. You have to find the slug that shoots closest to your point of aim, right? No two ways about it. If you've got rifle or ghost ring type sights, or you can put an optic on here, I'd love to put a red dot on here, but because of this stock and the operational need I have for what this stock does, I can't do that. So that's why I use the Brennicky 1 1/4 ounce Special Forces short magnum slug in this for two reasons. Number one, it's a 1 1/4 ounce slug, so it's extremely powerful. And number two, it is dead on to my bead out to 50 yards. All right. So that's why I use it, because it shoots to my gun, right? It's just like back in the day of the fixed-sighted revolver, right? Where you had the front sight milled into the barrel and the rear sight milled into the top strap, and you played with what load you carried to which one shot closest to the sights, and that's the one you actually carried. Yeah, same concept here. All right. So with your slug, you are making some trade-offs, all right? You get some, you get reduced level of penetration from buckshot compared to a slug. I'm not saying that all buckshot is reduced penetration. I am saying it's reduced penetration compared to a slug, okay? Inertia is a thing, and 9 individual pellets of buckshot do not have the inertia of 1 ounce or 1 1/4 or whatever your weight is slug. Each pellet ain't weighing that much, okay? And in my experience, slug loads tend to, at least full power slug loads tend to be loaded to a lot faster velocity than full power buckshot. So reduced recoil, I don't mess with reduced recoil much. Just one of those things. To me, reduced recoil just says less powerful. And if I'm using a shotgun, I expect recoil and I want the power. It's a trade-off I'm willing to make, okay? So with full power stuff, the slugs tend to be going a little bit faster and the individual projectile is considerably heavier. Thus, it's going to maintain more inertia because it's got more force that has to be counteracted by that outside force to stop it. So with a slug, you get extreme penetration, which may be what you want. For instance, there was an incident in my area a few months ago where a bunch of knuckleheads shot up some power substations and blacked the whole county out. All right, well, for those guys who got the security contract who were standing out there in front of substations for a few months, I would want a 12 gauge shotgun loaded with slugs. Why? Because if you come up there in that vehicle, that slug is going to do numbers on your engine block compared to what I could do with conventional civilian illegal rifle ammunition. All right. Now, if certain aspects of federal law didn't apply, and I could get my hands on like some 995 black tip or something like that for my AR, or I forget the military nomenclature, but AP 308, right? AP or SLAP 50, stuff like that. Different story. But for what's commonly available, you get a big slug, and that vehicle comes through, and you start working that engine, right? Work that engine, and this thing's going to do a hell of a lot better job at stopping that vehicle than, say, your pistol will. All right? So there's just something to be said about that. Now, if you are in a position where this is your only long gun, like when I first got into security work, you could have a pistol and a shotgun. It's been really up until the last few years where you could legally carry a patrol rifle. All right? Which I do. So sometimes, depends on the gig, right, if it makes sense. But this you've been able to have since armed security became a thing in this state, all right? Well, if I'm sitting there and I realize, hey, I need to take a more precise shot than I can get away with buckshot, or maybe this is just at such a range where the pattern is just too big and I won't hit it with buckshot, you could transition to a slug. And I'm not going to show you how to transition to a slug because there's so many different types of shotguns out there. I could make probably a 45-minute long video on just that alone. But in a nutshell, with this one, the action comes open. You may have to fish the round out. All right, and with this one, get it moving up a little bit and turn it over. and it'll usually fall right out. Then you can pop your slug in the ejection port, send the forearm home, fire your slug. Okay. The other option to do that is you can run the action, put a slug in the tube, run the action again, whichever one floats your boat. All right, and that's just this shotgun, which is a Harrington Richardson clone of a Remington 870. So that would work on the 870 as well. Same thing with the Mossberg, right? Run the action, it gets the buckshot, or it makes space in the magazine tube, right? One slug in the tube, hit the action lock, run it again. You can put another slug in there if you need to. All right. Obviously, you lose ammunition doing that. You're gonna do that anyway. You kick that round out of the chamber. You can surf it out if you want to. All right. There's ways to do it. Depends on your specific shotgun. That's just for this one. All right. And then you can take your longer range shot with your slug. But remember, you're getting extra penetration when you do that as well. So you need to be a lot more mindful of your backstop, right? We are still responsible for what that bullet does after it passes through the offender, okay? So there it is. You got buckshot, you got slugs. You get more accuracy and more penetration with a slug, but you're going to get significantly more recoil. And there again, more penetration, which can be a problem. With buckshot, you're going to get less penetration, but you're launching more projectiles, meaning you got a pattern instead of a single projectile. So at longer ranges, you're more likely to score a hit on, say, a moving target. However, you also have more projectiles that you have to be cognizant of where they're going. All right. Next thing, with a shotgun. If you don't have much in the way of upper body strength, this ain't for you. Okay? These things have a significant amount of felt recoil, and as we discussed earlier, they're not lightweight weapons. Okay? So what you're going to end up doing with this is planting it in your shoulder. Okay, and I'm going to take my sling off here. All right, you don't want it here, right? So you don't want to be doing some Camp Perry bladed stuff. This is going to be really exciting one time. And you don't want it here where that buttstock's on your collarbone. You don't want it with just the toe of the buttstock in your shoulder. No, you want this thing down low in the pocket of your shoulder, right? The hand that's manipulating your fire control is pulling back. The hand on the forearm is pushing out, right? So you're trying to rip this shotgun apart right here where the barrel and magazine tube join the receiver, like so. All right, notice I'm down low in my shoulder, right? That way the buttstock is not on my collarbone, nor is it on the actual joint area of the shoulder. I'm leaning into it slightly. Right, I'm not poking my ass way out there. All right, I'm in an aggressive posture with my feet, and I'm just leaning forward slightly and trying to rip it apart. Okay? So with a semi-auto, you just work the trigger. You just work the trigger. With a pump gun, once you come on the recoil, you break the method of how you're pulling. Right, you go from this to this. You're pulling the gun apart, boom. Okay, and mine does tend to cant when I do that because I'm typically still pulling with this and it just kind of rotates. Boom, bang. So what you should hear when you're working a shotgun isn't bang, it should be, as soon as you fire, boom, immediately get another round in the chamber. Right, you never know if you're going to need it. All right, if you're pulling the gun apart, bang, reverse your direction, work the action. What about your safety? Well, if I'm using a pistol grip, I'm partial to my safety being on my trigger guard, like most of your Italian shotguns in the 870. The reason for that, the Mossberg, which don't get me wrong, I think the Mossberg is a much more solid design than the 870. The safety's up here, which is fine, but with a pistol grip stock, it's a pain in the ass, right? So what kind of stock do you want? Well, I think the pistol grip is a lot more versatile. You can do a lot more with it. That's just me. For a hunting gun, use the conventional stock. It's more comfortable. But for a fighting gun, the ability to have that weapon up, supported by the sling easily, and use this hand to open doors, maneuver non-combatants around, or whatever the case may be there. The pistol grip just sells itself for that. Now, one good thing about the shotgun is it carries very well at the balance. So if you're not on your sling, right, and you're just moving about, you can carry it very easily at the balance. So what does that mean? If you don't have a sling and you need to transition, right, you could very easily catch it at the balance, roll it down, and it'll pretty much stay right here. All right. So you can make that work quite well for you, even if you don't have a sling. I'd still recommend you get a sling, but if you don't, yeah. Next, pistol grip or stock. Well, cool thing, this one can do both. All right. This is on here because I went on a surveillance gig several years ago with an individual known to be a criminal. Or not really with him, he was our target. What we were looking for, we were acquiring some information about him to be used for potential civil legal proceedings, okay? He owed our client quite a bit of money, and we were basically getting information to help our client recover that in a court of law. Well, we knew he was dangerous because he ran, or not necessarily him, but the people he ran around with were dangerous. And we were going to be in a major urban city with worry about a lot of vehicles. And like I said before, it's hard to beat a 12 gauge for dealing with vehicles. Problem, this is hard to conceal. So I went out and I found the only folding stock I could find in stock that day, because we made that decision the day before we left. All right. Yeah. So I had to go find what I had. This is the only stock I could find for it. And I mean, it does what I needed to do. Right. Pistol grip. Yep. It's small. It's small. Okay. You could say the same thing here about the Mossberg Shockwaves and the Remington TAC 14s and all that. Right. So how do you run this? No different. You're trying to pull it apart, pushing it out as far as you can away from you. Bang. Bang. Roll or recoil. Bang. All right. Very simple. Now with this one, the theory was get the gun up, boom, and pop the stock out once I got out of the vehicle. Okay. The stock is not comfortable. 10 out of 10 do not recommend if I didn't have an operational need for it, because this gun still accompanies me on surveillance details where it needs to be concealed. If I didn't have an operational need for it, I wouldn't have it on here. All right, and I am looking to replace it with a different folding stock in the near future, just because I've about had all of it I can stand. So there you go. There's your shotgun. Different things about it. One other thing. Well, I didn't even think about this till just a second ago. The pistol grip and the Mossberg type shotgun and the Mossberg Shockwave type shotgun and the Remington TAC 14. If you are setting up a set of kit where breaching might be a concern, they work very well for that, right? Because they're compact. Now, if you wanted to use, say, a folding stock full-size shotgun like this one for it, all right, yeah, you could short stock it, of course, right? You could certainly do that, okay? But for breaching, fold it. Get it where you, that way you can get it where you want it, right? You can short stock it, but it's just so much easier when there's nothing coming off the ass end of the gun. All right, so there we go, talking about shotguns, right? And I hope y'all enjoy this one, and we'll catch y'all later on.